ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਸੈਕੰਡ ਪਾਰਟ ਜੋ ਸਬੀਨਾ ਨੇ ਦੱਸੀ ਦਿੱਤਾ, ਹੁਕਮਨਾਮਾ 8 ਤਰੀਕ ਦੇ ਆਇਆ ਸੀ ਇੱਕ ਅਕਾਲ ਤਖਤ ਤੋਂ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਆਦੇਸ਼ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਉਹ ਸੁਣ ਲਈਏ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਬੁਲਾ ਕੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸੰਗਤ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਦੇਣ ਕਿ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਜਵਾਬ ਕੀ ਸੀ। ਸਵਾਲ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਮਗਰੋਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸੁਣ ਲਈਏ ਕਿ ਆਨਸਰ ਕੀ ਸੀ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਮਿਤੀ 8 ਫਰਵਰੀ 2012। ਗੁਰੂ ਸਵਾਰੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੌਂਸਲ ਯੂਕੇ ਅਤੇ ਸਮੂਹ ਸਤਕਾਰ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਯੂਕੇ ਦੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਯੂਕੇ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਸ੍ਰੀਮਾਨ ਜੀ, ਆਪ ਜੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਭੇਜਿਆ ਪੱਤਰ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ, ਧੰਨਵਾਦੀ ਹਾਂ। ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਪ੍ਰਸੰਨਤਾਯੋਗ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਵਿਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿੱਖ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਰਹਿਤ ਮਰਿਆਦਾ ਤੇ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਤਖਤ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਸੰਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੁੱਖ ਰੱਖਦਿਆਂ ਹੋਇਆ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦਾ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਵੱਧ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਯਤਨਸ਼ੀਲ ਹਨ। ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਪਾਵਨ ਸਰੂਪਾਂ ਦਾ ਅਦਬ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਤੇ ਬੇਅਦਬੀ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਣਾ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਸਿੱਖ ਦਾ ਮੁੱਢਲਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਬਣਦਾ ਹੈ। ਆਪ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਆਦੇਸ਼ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਸੂਚਿਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਿਧੀ ਵਿਧਾਨ ਪੰਥਕ ਨਿਰਧਾਰਤ ਰਹਿਤ ਮਰਿਆਦਾ ਦੇ ਅਧੀਨ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧਕ ਕਮੇਟੀਆਂ ਕਾਰਜਸ਼ੀਲ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਹਨ। ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਬੰਧਿਤ ਅਸਥਾਨ ਕੇਵਲ ਤੇ ਕੇਵਲ ਗੁਰਮਤ ਦੇ ਅਨੁਕੂਲ ਕਾਰਜਾਂ ਲਈ ਹੀ ਵਰਤੇ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਨ। ਗੁਰਮਤ ਤੋਂ ਵਿਵਰਜਿਤ ਕਾਰਜ, ਤਾਮਸੀ ਭੋਜਨ, ਨਸ਼ੇ ਆਦਿਕ ਦੀ ਵਰਤੋਂ ਦੀ ਸਖਤ ਮਨਾਹੀ ਹੈ। ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਸਵੰਧ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਭੇਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਮਾਇਆ ਨਾਲ ਉਸਾਰੇ ਜਾਂ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਵਿਦਿਅਕ, ਸਮਾਜਿਕ ਜਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਅਸਥਾਨ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਹੀ ਮਲਕੀਅਤ ਹਨ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਮਤ ਤੋਂ ਵਿਵਰਜਿਤ ਕਾਰਜਾਂ ਲਈ ਹੋਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਜਾਂ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਵੇਚਣ ਜਾਂ ਭੇਟ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਅਧਿਕਾਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਗੁਰੂ ਪੰਥ ਦਾ ਦਾਸ ਗੁਰਬਚਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜਥੇਦਾਰ, ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਤਖਤ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
Okay, so let me ask the first question, which was that it said, thank you for writing this letter that has been received. So they never usually write what the question is. So I want to ask the Satkar campaign, what was the question that you actually asked them, that they've responded to yourself and the Sikh Council?
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Perhaps before I go to that, for the Sangat, it's probably best to just explain what the Satkar campaign is and how it started. The Satkar campaign itself is a Sangat led and a Sangat driven movement as such. It's not an entity. It's not a specific formalized group of people. The main basis and the main emphasis around the Satkar campaign was initiated in October 2010. And it was around the concerns of Gurdwaras, and only a small number, I'd like to emphasize that as well, that were opening up or running halls linked to the Gurdwara where they were allowing meat, alcohol and parties to take place. Now these halls were linked to the Gurdwara, they were run by the Gurdwara, they were built from the donations given to the Gurdwara, and the concern was that at that point in time there were about 15 that we knew of, and concerns were that this could be growing and this could be an issue. So a large group of young like-minded Sikhs got together and decided to try and lobby and work with the Gurdwaras to try and eradicate this kind of act. We met with the Jathedar over the last 16 months several times. We've been quite fortunate to meet the Akal Takht Jathedar several times whilst he's been in the UK, and I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was on his last visit where two of the Singhs, actually one of the Singhs here, managed to have a very close discussion with Jathedar Ji himself, specifically about this issue itself. And perhaps I think Harkamal, because you had the discussion with the Jathedar himself, you might be the best person.
Hanji. The Jathedar, our kind of background was we wanted to explain to the Jathedar that actually the initial issue actually was enforcement of the Sandesh from Akal Takht Sahib in 2006. So that's where we go back, I think, a few steps, where there was a Sandesh from Akal Takht Sahib saying, look, all buildings belonging to the Gurdwara must be run in accordance with Gurmat. Specifically, let's not allow meat and sharab in those buildings. So I think 2010 October was, for me personally, it was something I read about on the internet. There was a lot of chatter about it on the internet, and actually people, I didn't know what to expect on that day. All there was texts going around, emails going around saying, look, this Biadabi is going to happen. Sangha, let's get together, try and explain to the committee how we can, move forward with them. And it's not a you against them situation. Actually, we're all Guru De Sekya. We need to try and enforce Gurmat. That's what our Gurdwara are there for. So after that situation happened, the party stopped. That Gurdwara realised they shouldn't be allowing this activity. We met the Jathedar just to explain to him actually that the Najwan have done an Ardas Benti in front of Maharaj Kirpa Karo. We want to try and stop this Biadabi happening in all the UK Gurdwara. So make the Jathedar aware that actually the youth and elders is not just youth, is men, women, young, old, Amritari, non-Amritari. There's no distinction made. It's just a basic realisation as to what's going wrong. So we met with the Jathedar, explained to him this is what's happened, and the Sangat are trying to enforce the Sandesh and the Gurmat message from Akal Takht Sahib. So that was the kind of first meeting, and the second meeting was just making them aware of it. Then I think the situation arose, and awareness arose that certain Gurdwaras realised, the committees realised, hold on a minute, we've got a problem here. We've got Gurdwara old buildings. Before we thought we could get away with it, but now actually people are taking notice of it and are trying to enforce it. So whereas the first incident, there was a peaceful protest, everything passed off fine. The committee realised the Sangha carried on lobbying the Gurdwaras, and actually 4 or 5 Gurdwara realised just by dialogue, discussion, sitting down to them, talking to them, actually what's being said is right. They changed their practices, and it's quite understandable where there's a ongoing practice in an area, or even some cases 20 years, that certain local people will be against it. But on the whole, the committees realise actually what the Sangat is saying, what the Gurmat Sandesh from Akal Takht Sahib is actually right for what a Gurdwara, the institution, is. So with that in mind, certain committees realise, okay, let's get rid of the building from the Gurdwara estate, set up a separate charity, set up a separate organisation, and as a sham, claim it to be independent from the Gurdwara, so that Sandesh doesn't apply to it.
Right. But I mean, when I first heard this, I was a bit surprised. But surely, the Gurdwaras that you visited, did some of them just stop then when you went and explained to them, or was it somebody local that you needed to be more involved about? How were you trying to solve this problem then initially, when the Aadesh hadn't even come out?
No, the Sandesh has been out since 2006, so the Sandesh has had, it's been around for quite a while. And if you want to take it back, there's a Hukamnama to 1998, which also emphasises the practice as being, something that shouldn't happen. We worked in partnership with the committees. We formed a partnership with the committees. We formed a partnership with the local Sangat. And like Harkam has just said here, there's 7 Gurdwaras that we know of in the last 16 months that have stopped. Some of them we actually haven't really, as a campaign or as outsiders, if you want to call it, we haven't actually been involved. That's been done by the local Sangat. So the local Sangat...
I was going to say, you really do need the local Sangat somehow to get support from the local Sangat. Otherwise, people will always say, those are the Barawai.
Definitely.
Right.
That's always the case, and there's no denying that. We're not going to lie to you. That is the case, and that does happen a lot of the time. But fortunately, Gurmat prevails, and local Sangat, they're always like-minded people within the local Sangat who do raise their voice and do have concerns against it. And within every committee as well, it tends to be, what tends to be the problem is, I think, committees fall for thinking this is what the majority want. And I think because we have an election system, they often think that we have to please the voters. And that's how it's sort of managed to creep into some of the Gurdwaras. It's been put out to the Sangat. The Sangat don't think this through properly. They're given the right to vote for it. And for instance, in Grays and certainly other Gurdwaras, it's the majority of the Sangat that vote for the meat and sharab to come in. Now,
I was surprised about that. Preeti and I were discussing this. Preeti said she didn't actually believe that was happening in terms of why would you not have common sense? Forget about Gurmat for 1 second. Gurdwara ne beche kam karna, where's the common sense gone? Something hasn't quite added up for me.
I mean, you're like-minded, you think like that, but I think often when it comes to these issues and it comes to the elections of committees, you'll find that most of the Sangat within that area aren't actually involved and don't get involved in what's going on. So what you do find is often the wrong people come forward and vote. And the Gurmat like-minded people, they may take a step back and think, I don't want to get involved with politics. So I'd rather keep a distance from it.
I mean, we've been lucky that in our Gurdwara we haven't had this from the word go. So this particular Aadesh doesn't actually affect us. The Gurdwaras that it's meant to affect, ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਆ ਹੁਕਮਨਾਮਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਧਿਆਨ ਨਾਲ ਸੁਣ ਲਿਓ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ what will happen if they don't follow this hukamnama? Are you going to sort of chase them up or do something from the campaign point of view? What's your idea behind that then? Let's say now everyone that's got the hukamnama must be aware of it, and this channel is going to tell everyone now.
I mean, it's not, whatever will happen is not going to be in the hands of the campaign. Whatever will happen, we will see a degradation of Gurmat. We will see, we will see be taking more form in our Gurukars, and overall it will be the Qawm and it will be the UK Sangat which will lose out. So it's about every individual standing up and seeing what they want from the Gurdwara, what direction the Gurdwara is going in, and really these hukamnamas, this is all a Sikh really has in terms of formal stuff. The Rat Maryada, this is the things which we have to hold on to. As and when it's getting more and more evolved, there's more and more depth coming into the Rat Maryada. Previously, the Rat Maryada, if you see the original Rat Maryada, it will say Gurdwara etiquette, no meat, no shrub. But now, as and when you read these hukamnamas and sandeshis, it's more and more evolving, getting more and more deeper, and there's more of a foresight. And that's what we really need as a Qawm. We need the foresight of how we eradicate these kind of things from.
So have you got a list of the Gurdwaras that actually, I'm not that we're going to announce them today, but have you got a list on your website, or will people know, or are you just hoping that the local Sangat is going to say, stick the hukamnama now, on the notice board when people come in? What's the...
I think that is it. I mean, it has to rock everybody's conscience. So it has to rock the individual's conscience, has to rock the individual committee's conscience that there is actual, specific hukamnamas on this. The Akal Takht, the Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji, it's as good as, regardless of how we seem to be viewing the Akal Takht at this point in time, is the institute which is the main institute of the Sikh religion. Right. And these decisions are based on Gurmat. They're not based on anything else. When you read through it, and you can literally track it back and think, this relates to this relates to that, this relates to Gurmat, this relates to Rat Maryadas. It's not somebody's in anybody's control that they've written something which is their own thinking or something like that. So.
Okay. If I can touch it on that as well, I think that the people who want to. If I can touch it on that as well, I think that the people who want to discredit these kind of hukamnamas, I mean, these are just clarifications of good, like Tasir Singh said here. These are clarifications of Guru Maryada. That's what these Adeshis and Sandeshis are. Often, I think there was a program the other day on the Sikh channel, the Panth Time program, and I think it went off topic quite very early on, where I think it was more about the enforcement of this Aadesh rather than what it actually stands for and what it's actually about. It's not up to a group of people to go out there and enforce Gurmat principles. It's up to the individual Sangat to stand up. It's up to the people in charge to do something about it. And you're very fortunate here to have a very strong Gurdwara committee and very proactive in the kind of things that you do. But unfortunately, you'll find that the majority, and this is a very judgmental statement to make, I'll say this on record, but majority of the Gurdwara committees aren't like that. And it's unfortunate.
You see, what I found really odd is that I don't understand why when a hukamnama does come, I would think the committees would automatically look at it and say, yes, we're going to implement this. And I wanted to just talk one example. When I was involved in revamping the constitution here, which we haven't yet got passed, but hopefully in time we will, I looked at other constitutions, and one that I picked up from the internet was for the Sikh Sabha of Virginia. And they have a little article which says that under no circumstances shall an Aadesh or an hukamnama coming from the Akal Takht will be challenged by the Sangat. Wow. It will be one that we will strict, the best that we can. So there was never a discussion about those hukamnamas, and they've got that in their constitution. And that's how I think that we should try to move forward, by getting it in our constitutions. Yes, you can have a discussion about it, you can ask to clarify it and so on, but I think that there shouldn't be any discussion about as a debate. You're right about institutes. If we break this now and on any hukumnama, we will be breaking the building blocks, I think, of our faith. I know there are corrupt people in India, but it's very important that we do, when they give a hukumnama, that we have some respect for it. But what I was really pleased, and I'm not trying to big you up here about the Satgara campaign, and of course the council, I reckon a lot of people will be envy of you that you've managed to get a hukumnama from the Akal Takht, which in itself is an achievement, because a lot of Gurdwaras can't do that. A lot of Gurdwaras don't get answers back and so on. So did you want to add something to that, Harkamal?
I just think, getting a hukumnama or whatever, there's a lot of things, from, a lot of the elders, it's not like we're saying, we might have been on a few shows on Satgara campaign just because no one else wants to come on TV, whatever. But the bottom line is, and don't get any misunderstanding about it. When we say, the Gurdwaras are doing this, Gurdwaras are doing that, a lot of elders, a lot of the Jathebandiyan, Panthak Jathebandiyan, not going to name any one for sake of missing names out, but a lot of the Gursikhs, the elders, have given us guidance, given us support to take this forward. They've had their own discussions with Akal Takht Sahib just to, get the message that this is a UK-wide campaign, that the Sangat are really alert to this issue, so you can't just say individuals have done this, individuals have done that. Actually, it's the whole UK Sangat waking up and saying, look, we want to enforce, we want to keep our Gurdwaras to their roots. We enforce Gurmat Maryada in Gurdwaras, because if the Gurdwaras aren't doing it, then where else do we expect it?
Okay.
Can I just add to that conversation? Should we not be educating the Sangat on the actual statements? Because I think a lot of people who come to the Gurdwara, if not are keeping their guests to start with, the basic principles aren't there. So should we not be educating the Sangat and taking a more proactive role about educating them about the Madrada and all of the rules and things, and reinforcing them in the Gurdwaras, so that the committees are then the Sangat is then educated with those principles, and then will actually implement them for their own cause, rather than thinking it's what the Sangat wants.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, I think this goes back to the discussion we've had over and over again many times, is actually, what are our Gurdwara there for? Are they there as a social club? That you can't deny that there is definitely a social element to the Gurdwara. It builds a strong community spirit, especially amongst the Punjabi community who settled here 25, 30 years ago. But really, it's a Gurdwara, so if we're not going to, really trying to bring Sikhi forward in our Gurdwara, then where are we going to do that, really? That's the question.
Yes, sure.
I agree with Preeti Kaur, and that we do need to perhaps communicate the statements a bit more. One issue that I came across with the making sure that you have Singh and Kaur within your names when you're married, just an experience that I heard from another member of the community, that they're organising their wedding, but they didn't have Kaur in their name, and that on top of all the stresses they had for the wedding, they then had to go through that process, and it seems a shame to have to wait for that many years for that to be added onto your name. If that's such a big emphasis, that maybe that needs to start from earlier on. So there definitely needs to be more communication between the Sangat and actually this the statements that are coming through.
No, and I think you're right, Sabina, because what happened was that we implemented that hukmnama, which is like one of my favourite hukmnamas in this Gurdwara we managed to implement. Of course, everybody was not happy about it. And I have tried to explain to people on numerous occasions, especially the couple that are getting married, that, why you need to change your name. It is not only a name change, they do have to actually stand in front of the Granthi and do the Ardas ke main Sikh hain. People forget the next line, because Sikhi tarni bahut zaruri hai. But everyone started focusing on the Singh and Kaur. That was probably the easier step, by changing your names on your driving license or on your passport. It is कि थोनों Sikh भी बनना पैना नाल, कि होर मैं किसी धर्म नूं नहीं मनदा, मैं Guru Granth Sahib नूं अपना Guru मनदा होया. But I think the point is that sometimes when the hukmnamas come, people start to just disrespect them. They don't even bother actually. How many Gurdwaras do you know that have a book which tells you all the hukamname? You know, that, okay, these are the ones that have come, and these are the ones that we should follow. They've been around since, since the time of the Guru. I mean, you can get more information on the internet than you can in the Gurdwaras. There should be a folder with all the hukamnames that have come out, so we can actually at least discuss them, if nothing else. But hopefully, I mean, we passed that in 2007 and 8 for the Kaur and Singh names, and I don't think we've done any weddings since then. I mean, I have to say that there have been a couple of times that I've been to families to explain to them, and I've always been quite surprised with the youngsters in saying, we don't mind changing our names. It's the elders that have an issue. It's not the youngsters. I mean, it's the elders that seem to have this bee in their bonnet about, which I've never understood.
I think it's because they're challenged at the time to actually change the name, whereas, you know, say for Christianity, for example, they're baptised from the start. So if that's what we want our children to then have sing and call, we should be doing it from the start. I think it's very difficult for a child who's, say, 25, about to get married, to say, actually, your name for all these years has not been correct.
Yes.
You know, how do they internalise that? So, and that might not be, obviously that's not their fault if their parents have not put sing or call within their name. Right. So perhaps we need to think about how to communicate those to the Sangat a lot earlier.
Okay. So do you want to add something else onto that?
I just want to touch on what Bhai Sahib's just mentioned there about collectively having the hukamnamas and sandeshis in one place. That's actually something that's been of concern to us, and we've started collating that, because what we found is that there's not one place where you can actually get that information, and we're in the process of actually collating as much as we can on at least everything that's come out in the last 20 years. If we can get our hands on most of those important sandeshis, Aadeshis and hukamnamas, then that's something that we're hoping to start putting onto a website which people can refer to. They are accessible. We have managed to get hold of some of the hukamnamas dating back to, is it 1970s? Yeah, and surprisingly enough, there's many out there for a lot of issues that have happened and that have taken place over the last 35, 40 years, which we may have forgotten about. Which at the time you can see that the Akal Takht and the things within Akal Takht were thinking on how to resolve. One thing I also want to add to this is that any change has to be sustainable, and that means that, you know, if we're going to go out there and try and make some changes to the way the Gurdwaras are run in its current form, and perhaps they're not sort of adhering to Gurmat as much as they should be, then that change has to be sustainable, and it has to be done in a peaceful partnership, really, and it can't be done with force. And that's something that I just want to emphasise, that that's not the approach we take. I think there's a stigma and a stereotype attached to these kind of movements being very forceful and being very extreme, and that's what I want to mention. That's definitely not the case.
I have another question for you from the campaign point of view. I mean, have you realised, I mean, when the Hukmnama comes out, I assume it's for all the Sikhs that when you were campaigning, or did you miss out certain communities? So let me talk about that for a second. Like, for example, the Patade community, who are also Sikhs, but they have been known for some time because, I was married in Southampton nearly, 20 odd years ago, and it was the first time I went to a Gurdwara where I realised you could get a full breakfast in the morning. And although it didn't seem odd to me because I was just observing it. So, but I did find it quite fascinating. You could get, eggs, bacon in the morning with a tal. So have you looked at all the communities as Sikhs, or have you sort of excluded certain communities, whether they're the Ramgarhia community or they're the Patade community?
No, overall the whole seva has been across wherever Maharaj Prakash is, wherever the community says that it's a Gurdwara, and Gurmat Maryada then should prevail in those Gurukars. So that relates to communities across the UK, Ravidas community, Bhagavad Ravidas community, the Patra community. Some of the Gurdwaras which have stopped are Patra Gurdwaras as well, related to the Patra background. So we haven't tried to exclude anybody. The issue is that the Beadbi can't happen in a Gurukar, right, regardless of where that community is based.
That's good. I thought maybe we were just keeping it to the Singh Sabhi, because they seem to be the majority hold in the UK. That's all.
No, I think actually it's really important actually that we take a step back. Next generation, we actually when the allegations made कि तू इस जात तो बंदा के साडे सिर ते चढ़दे हैं. You know, we've had those conversations. We're speaking very humbly to them, very politely, and all they've got in their head is, you guys, what authority do you have? You know, and they make a complete generalization or assumption that you're from a specific community. Actually, just because we've got Gurdwaras, you won't know what our backgrounds are, right? But actually, if you talk to amongst us, and actually, we're from all Jata Pata, even though I don't like to say it, you know, Guru Sikhi doesn't teach that. But actually, that's the generalizations. I don't know what's happened with our elders. They've got in such hatred for each other based on caste lines. That's and you know, the issue is taking it on the on the Gurmat Rasul, not looking at your background.
No, it's true. And I'll make one comment there for, you know, people who are watching the program, that, you know, we've tried locally in Hitchin, we have 3 Gurdwaras. We've tried to involve as many communities from the other Gurdwaras, which is the only request that I could make to other communities, that rather than having so many, the youth should get together. That's what's happened in Hitchin. If we look at the model of Hitchin, yes, we have 3 Gurdwaras, but we've got the communities actually working together, the youth. I'm not saying forget the elders, but there comes a point that you have to take a step. Just like you did with the campaign, locally at the grassroots level, youth have got to get up and say, I'm not saying let's have the spring uprising like we've had it all over the Middle East, although I'd love that in the Gurdwaras, to be honest with you. But what happens is, I think we have to make sure that we sort of bring the other communities, because the youth don't have that ability. And you're right, you can't tell people now. And that's why for me it's always been important that the Gurdwaras, you know, have to provide for the needs of the Sangat. And that's how when one person leaves from one Gurdwara to another, he leaves because he thinks, okay, my needs aren't being met, whether it's for Punjabi, whether it's for tabla classes, Kirtan or Santhya and so on. So we have to make sure that we cater for those in our Gurdwara.
I just want to kind of stepping back one point as well, actually. You know, I can imagine it, like, you know, if we're making points which are hurting anyone's feelings, just step back. Actually, we're not here to offend anyone. You know, I can imagine people say, "Oh, khunde kaun hai sanu kehne wale hai, kal de jamme ho." That's what they say, है ना? यही बेनती है, look, हाथ जोड़ के बेनती है, look, we're not saying that ਅਸੀਂ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਹਾਂ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪਤਾ, but the बेनती is just to get to the simple principles, right? And from there we take it forward. We're not saying ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਸਹੀ ਹਾਂ. And you know, we get emails or phone calls asking for specific advice on this or that, and we're no experts on these issues. And they're actually issues that actually the Panth needs to get together and really tackle them. The initial focus is a hokka, basically, on Mitra. That's what the campaign's dealt with. But there's many other issues. There's other issues that we've dealt with in the background that actually we haven't brought to the fore yet, because, you know, if we start tackling each one, there's many, you know, we'll be stuck all day. So slowly but surely we need to raise awareness with the Sangha.
I think that's the right approach. I think what happens is that you have to start slowly, and I do want to thank the Satkar campaign. It's a shame that we couldn't get the Sikh Council, who were always also called on this, to come in and talk about it. But no, the Gurdwaras have to become the fulcrums of our community. That's how we should look at it. There's no other way if we want to move forward, and we have to have young people involved. And that's why our program before with the young boy, it was excellent, because I'm hoping one day he will be in the committee. We've got to look at them young and involve them. So that's the only request that I can really make, you know, to the Sangat in general, that we need to sort of uprise together as a group and you know, begin to do these types of activities. So I want to thank all of you for coming anyway, and I hope that we have another program talking about your campaign, especially with the Sikh channel. And I want to thank the Sikh channel for coming to Sri Guru Singh Sabha Hitchin. So I think we should end it there then. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.